Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Waldman. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? We're going to pretend for this morning that it is Friday, March 2nd, 2018. It is, as you're hearing it, Friday, March 2nd, 2018. But, of course, I'm recording it ahead of time, and you know what complications that can bring, including not being entirely up to date on what craziness may have happened in between Thursday night, let's say, and Friday morning. And what indictments might have been handed down, what wars may have been started, or how much bribe money Jared Kushner might have been taking while I wasn't looking. But there was so much from the crazy day Thursday that we just didn't get to that I thought I might as well, bring that up and see if we can discuss some of the things and just kind of get them on the record before Friday. I was hesitant to let you go into the weekend without getting more of these things on the record. I don't know how you can survive a day without me. I don't know. I felt compelled to bring some of these things up, including one story that we mentioned yesterday and even gave the headline out, and we didn't get to it, and I want to know. So for my own benefit, I want to turn to the Think Progress piece from Casey Michael, who has written, "What the hell is going on at Trump's Panama property?" That's a big question for a lot of us, and we haven't even gotten around to that yet. I thought I would check in on it. Threats of eviction, fights between rival security teams, police in riot gear, and a new investigation into Trump's most maligned property. And I mean, I've maligned a lot of them, and a lot. So I haven't even gotten around to maligning this one. The rest of the world has been taking care of that one for us. This is the Trump Ocean Club International Hotel and Tower. They just love to paste words into the names of their properties. Strange things are happening at the Trump International Hotel and Tower in Panama. Armed guards and riot police shredded files and members of the Trump building security arrested. All while the building's majority owner tries to sever ties with the Trump brand. Remember, of course, this is one of these latter-day buildings that Trump only plasters his name on once it's built by someone else. Armed guards and riot police, right? All of that stuff happening yesterday. Suddenly, where the Trump Panama property, which Ivanka Trump described as her family's largest project in all of the Americas, which probably means it's not nearly that, once stood as one of the major blights against the business record of the entire Trump family, it now threatens to become something much more menacing for the president. I don't think I even understand that paragraph I just read, but I do understand when something becomes more menacing for the president. The most recent trouble appears to have begun last summer. In August, businessman Orestes Fintiklis, Fintiklis, Orestes Fintiklis. That sounds like the genus species name of some particularly weird animal. And his Miami-based Ithaca Capital Partners purchased 202 of the Trump Tower's 369 units. Wow. That seems like an unusual deal. During what the AP describes as a fire sale. It must have been. By October, however, Fintiklis realized that affiliations with the Trump brand were taking a toll on his bottom line. Hello. As he claimed last month, the property had steadily been losing market share and stands in last place among its peer luxury hotels per a lawsuit filed by Ithaca. What's the suit? I don't know. I'm curious about what the claims might be. As such, though, Fintiklis moved to end Trump Hotel's management contract, where he makes lots of money, as well as seek compensatory damages, as the AP noted. Trump Hotels, however, disputed the push, claiming that Ithaca pledged that it would not seek to act against Trump Hotel's interest as hotel manager when Fintiklis became majority owner. I think I must have mispronounced it probably all the times, but so one of the interim times. Right? The developments since have been nothing short of bizarre, more so even than that guy's name. Despite Fintiklis's efforts to evict Trump Hotel staff from the building, and even though a Panamanian court in December declined to support Trump Hotel's claims, the staff has thus far refused to leave the building, blocking Fintiklis from his units. And that's 202 of the 369 units. That's pretty amazing. The Trump staff even went so far as to run off a group of Marriott executives who had been invited to tour the property amid a search for a replacement hotel operator, per the AP. Indeed, the Trump organization hasn't budged in its claims that Fintiklis has no standing to evict Trump hotels from the building or from its role as building manager, a role it says is supposed to continue through 2031. By the way, does this sound super mobbed up to anybody else? I mean, the idea that there would be security guards there as enforcers, not only to refuse to leave when they've been fired, but blocking the property owner from their own units and running off Marriott executives who are coming in to talk to the majority owner about managing the property. Instead, it seems pretty weird to me. And then, of course, it devolving into fist fights later on and people barricaded into this place. It's very mobby, it seems to me. All right. In a brief statement, Trump Organization lawyer Alan Garten, he's back in the news, claimed that Fintiklis has been conspiring with others to remove Trump Hotels as manager and fire most, if not all, of its loyal and dedicated employees. So what? You're fired. That's the catch line, right? Now it's not going to work. Further, according to Garten, Fintiklis has resorted to thug-like mob-style tactics. Well, I'm sorry. There you go. I've just solved the mystery. Did it seem like it was mobbed-up activity to you? Well, it is. I was only guessing up until this moment when a Trump organization, a Trump-affiliated spokesperson says that the other guys, the other party to this dispute, is engaging in thug-like mob-style tactics. That's a very sure sign, as we've learned over the last year or so, that it's the Trumps engaging in thug-like mob-style tactics. How do you know? Because they said the other side was doing it. That's all it takes. According to Fintiklis's lawyer, however, the Trump organization added some 20 private security guards to their staff remaining at the hotel over the past few days. Likewise, when staffers working for the building's condominium section and not affiliated with Trump hotels tried to enter the room containing the building's surveillance monitor and servers, Trump guards physically repelled them, with the phone and internet connections then downed as a result. As one staff member told the Washington Post, someone grabbed me by the neck and wrestled me down. Then he continued attacking everyone. Another legal complaint adds that Trump's security team physically shoved Fintiklis himself when he attempted to terminate the Trump employees. You're fired. Oh, yeah, well, I will kick your ass. That's pretty mobbed up. Likewise, when the Hotel Owners Association tried to fire Trump Hotel's staff last week, the Hotel Owners okay. The Hotel Owners Association. What are they doing here? No, the Hotel Owners Association, the association, I don't know what, of the I guess Fintiklis, his own organization. When they tried to fire Trump Hotel's staff last week, witnesses saw Trump's managers begin carrying files to an area where the sounds of a shredding machine could be heard, the AP reported. That is pretty weird. Maybe we'll take a look at the AP story about this thing. The physical struggles increased yesterday when Panamanian police arrested a security guard at the hotel after the guard prevented a police commander from entering the hotel's offices. And today, onlookers witnessed police in riot gear entering the hotel. But the issues haven't been limited to scuffles and handcuffs. Earlier this week, Panama's government entered the fray, announcing that it would be formally investigating the matter. As such, wrote the Post's Joshua Partlow and David Farenthold, the standoff had suddenly turned a theoretical concern about the Trump administration, that someday the president's private business might be investigated by a foreign government, into a reality. Yeah, not just the reality of our own government investigating Trump's private business, but now other countries. By this point in the show, I expect that we will have invaded Panama for real, and will sound pretty prescient at that point. Remember, I'm recording this ahead of time. The legal wranglings and the sudden threat of a foreign government investigating Trump-affiliated assets are the latest blow to Trump's Panama property, as well as to the president's broader business ventures. The history of the Panama Hotel is as sketchy as any associated with the Trump brand. Wow, that's going to be pretty sketchy. When the building, described by Trump as Ivanka's baby, was known as the Trump Ocean Club, it served as one of the most noteworthy targets for Colombian drug cartels to launder their money. Again, we've been over this. That's what his properties are about. He doesn't have enough money to build them in the first place anyway, so he just slaps the name on them and accepts management fees, but then you're locked into a contract, and apparently it lasts until 2031, even if they suck at it, right? That's how he makes his money, but the investors and him, depending on what kind of percentage he gets of sales, make their money back pretty easily because they are, of course, in the business of accepting cash from anybody. So I guess Colombian drug cartels laundering their money at the Trump Ocean Club, whereas Russian mobsters were laundering their money at Trump's New York properties. A 2017 report from Global Witness found that the building, which was, quote, one of Trump's most lucrative licensing deals, unquote, during his presidency days, raked in proceeds from Colombian cartels' narcotics trafficking, and that Trump himself was one of the beneficiaries of the laundering. By the way, side note, read this alongside the revelation, if I have to dig up the reference to it, that Trump has in the recent past been telling anyone who'll listen that he wants to adopt the Duterte regime's approach and just kill all the drug dealers. And I don't know whether that's because he doesn't think that he's getting that money through the Trump Panama Club, or maybe he thinks he'll get more of it if he starts to kill them. I don't know exactly. Or he's just a dotard and makes no connection in his mind between who's buying condos at the Trump Ocean Club in Panama City and those dirty, rotten drug dealers that I see on Fox News who are such bad people and we should kill them. There is no indication Trump was outwardly aware of any of the cartel's involvement in Trump property purchases. However, the signs of money laundering were obvious. Many of the units were purchased in both bulk and in cash. That, of course, the guy who owns the most of them, he bought 202 of them. Is that not bulk? Anyway, I guess in smaller bulks and in cash, for instance, and several were purchased via bearer shares, one of the most notorious means of using luxury properties to launder dirty money. Bearers shares were the target for the heist in Die Hard, weren't they? And neither here nor there. What's more, many of the purchasers were anonymous shell companies, oh no, a number of which contained Trump in their names. How interesting is that? As Reuters reported in 2013, the property's first primary broker, who worked closely with Ivanka on the building, said, "When I was in Panama, I was regularly laundering money for more than a dozen companies." By the way, we should find out who's that quote attributed to. It's not attributed here in the Think Progress piece, but I have questions about that. Let's look that up. I'm just kind of curious if we can figure out who that was that said that. Let's see. Well, this is just a reference to here, this very same thing. And I can see the quote. Is this it here? Is this an attribution? Slate has got it. Of all places, Slate has got this, huh? All right. Let's see. Investors in the Panama Trump Tower included a notorious criminal who laundered drug money. Let's check that one out. Where can I find the quote? Is it easy to find? Here's the name that was associated with it. According to Global Citizen, here we are. I'm going to jump over to this. In news reports published by Reuters and NBC, the early success of the Ocean Club may have drawn on laundered drug money from David Eduardo Helmut Murcia Guzman, more commonly known as David Murcia, a notorious con artist. I feel like we may have called his name in the past. When he purchased units at the property, Murcia is known as the Bernie Madoff of Colombia. and in 2011 was sentenced to 9 years in U.S. prison for his international money laundering, which included funds from trafficking drugs. Now, after serving 6 years of that sentence, Murcia is expected to return to Colombia, where he will serve an additional 22 years in prison. Reuters reports Murcia didn't make his way into the Trump property alone. He worked with Alexandre Henrique Ventura Noriega, an infamous Brazilian real estate broker known for his shady business relationships, to buy units at the Trump Ocean Club before the construction was complete. Noriega was crucial to the early success of the Trump Hotel in Panama, not that Noriega, the other Noriega, where he was responsible for roughly 1/3 of the 666, another weird use of that number, pre-construction units at the property. I do feel like we have called the Murcia name before, and wasn't there a connection through Brazil and elsewhere in South America for Trump associates and then later employees who were involved in his end of the shady modeling businesses that he ran? As I recall, Paolo Zampelli was that the name of the guy who's the one who's still around and floating around in international circles. Okay, well, anyway, back to the Think Progress piece on this. According to the Global Witness report, this is a common feature in Trump business dealings. I guess that there's money laundering going on. Trump's business approach has been to lease his name and for him and his family to drum up sales in some of the world's dirty money hotspots, in some instances aided knowingly or unwittingly by networks of money launderers. The result is that Trump's current wealth has depended in part on securing significant infusions of untraceable foreign funds. That sounds familiar too. All of that, however, was before Trump became president and before his brand became toxic across the world. The Trump name has already been removed from properties in Canada and Brazil, as well as in New York. Should Finticlis succeed, Panama would be the latest country to see a building divest itself of association with Trump. While many building owners may want to distance themselves from Trump for moral or political reasons, there's also a financial component. As one businessman who owns multiple units in Trump's Panama property told the Post, it's a bloodbath, basically. It's a financial bloodbath. Nobody wants to go there. If you've got a Marriott and a Hyatt and a Trump, you're not going to Trump. How different that is here in D.C. Given the fact that physical fights are now taking place on the Trump property, to say nothing of the downed phone lines, the police in riot gear, and the new investigation from the Panamanian government, which we'll get rid of this weekend, there's little reason to think anyone will be choosing Trump's Panama project over its competitors anytime soon. Wowie, wow. That's exciting and interesting. Now, I thought that perhaps we might scoot back and take a look at the AP reporting on the situation just to see if we can get it. Oh, okay. All right. It's in, it's the AP story. I'm being pointed to the one that's running, the version of it running in Politico from, let's see, over the weekend, I guess, right? February 24th. That would have been Saturday. Trump officials fight eviction from Panama hotel they manage. Okay. The AP on this, as I said, one of President Donald Trump's family businesses is battling an effort to physically evict its team of executives from a luxury hotel in Panama where they manage operations, and police have been called in to keep the peace. That is isn't that interesting? That's sort of a backwards presentation from what we were reading a moment ago. That, you know, they're the ones, they're fighting an attempt to physically eject them, but they're the ones taking swings at the people who are coming and saying, you're fired, you have to leave. Witnesses told the AP they saw Trump's executives carrying files to a room for shredding. Representatives of the Hotel Owners Association, remember that one, formally sought to fire Trump's management team Thursday by hand-delivering termination notices to them at the Trump International Hotel and Tower, according to a Panamanian legal complaint filed by our humble hero here, Orestes Finticlis. It's still difficult for me, who controls 202 of the property's 369 hotel units. Trump's managers retreated behind the glass walls of an office where they were seen carrying files to an area where the sounds of a shredding machine could be heard, according to two witnesses aligned with the owners. The legal complaint also accused Trump's team of improperly destroying documents, which would seem to follow. The witnesses spoke on condition of anonymity over concerns they would be drawn into an expensive and protracted legal fight, or be killed, I guess. Elsewhere in the building, the hotel's owner's team and its allies were barred by Trump hotel staff from entering the room containing the building's closed-circuit TV system, as well as key computer servers for the hotel and apartments that share the property. In response, they shut off the power to the room, temporarily bringing down phone lines and internet connections within the building. According to the legal complaint, Trump's chief of security and 6 security guards pushed and shouted at Fintiklis when he came to deliver the termination notices. The complaint said the hotel employees then called police. A new confrontation appeared likely to arise during the weekend as Trump's security staff set up early Saturday in the hotel lobby, witnesses said. This is very interesting and dramatic. Representatives of the Trump Organization did not respond to phone calls and emailed requests for comment, and the listed number for the hotel failed to connect. Well, all the power was down. Likewise, Fintiklis did not respond to messages left by text or email. On Friday night, lawyers, notaries, and rival security personnel gathered at the hotel in Panama City while talks were underway to prevent the conflict from deteriorating further. The showdown is the newest low in a months-long fight over control of the property. We did hear a little bit about this earlier. And let's see, can we scroll down and see if there's anything else that jumps out at us as new information? I guess not. It's really just a fight over whether or not the Fintiklis managed group has the right to fire the Trump managed group as majority owner of the largest number of units in the property. Very weird. And, well, I guess if the Panamanian government ever does, in fact, intervene very clearly on the side of the Fintiklis management group, well, we may see, after all, a declaration, certainly a declaration by the Trump administration or by Donald Trump himself via Twitter that the government of Panama is somehow invalid, and that would be a pretty good signal that he really was considering maybe. Wouldn't that be like the most amazing thing ever? It's ridiculous. I don't want to suggest it or anything, but it's well within tolerances for Trump-like behavior. Would you think there would be any serious objection to invading Panama all over again? Sure, it's a nightmare scenario. We envisioned it. We definitely, I know, just sort of like fantasized about it in a way on the show, I don't know, months ago, years ago, perhaps, about the idea of, Trump deploying troops in the event of an emergency overseas in a country wherein a Trump hotel was located, and how he would send troops to evacuate Trump hotels' luxury penthouse guests first, or that he might just outright invade a country in order to protect its property there, or the Trump properties there. And we were like kind of half kidding at the time. But I guess Panama is the place where it could first come to a head. And I guess we better keep an eye on it over the weekend, man. It's sounding pretty crazy. All right. Well, let's see. We got a break coming up, and maybe at that point I can check out whether or not we should just check the records. And have we called that David Murcia's name before, and in what context exactly? I'm sure it was about sales of the Panama building units and nothing much more revealing than that. Anyway, let's move to another strange topic that probably needs some weekend discussion time. The New York Times is reporting this headline: Senate intelligence leaders say House GOP, the GOP, you know them as the GOP, House GOP leaked a senator's texts. Do you remember this story from a little while back when texts sent by Virginia Senator Mark Warner were leaked? And I don't even remember the contents of them and why they were leaking, but apparently the Senate Intelligence Committee has come to a conclusion about who leaked them and how, and it was Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee. This is perhaps more bizarre than the confrontation down in Panama. The Senate Intelligence Committee has concluded that Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee were behind the leak of private text messages between the Senate panel's top Democrat and a Russian-connected lawyer, according to two congressional officials briefed on the matter. Senator Richard Burr of North Carolina, the committee's Republican chairman, and Senator Mark Warner of Virginia, a top Democrat, were so perturbed by the leak that they demanded a rare meeting with Speaker Paul Ryan last month to inform him of their findings. They used the meeting with Mr. Ryan to raise broader concerns about the direction of the House Intelligence Committee under its chairman, Representative Devin Nunes of California, the official said. To the senators who are overseeing what is effectively the last bipartisan investigation on Capitol Hill into Russia's interference in the 2016 elections, the leak was a serious breach of protocol and a partisan attack by one intelligence committee against the other. The text messages were leaked just days after the same House Republicans had taken the extraordinary step of publicly releasing, over the objections of the FBI, a widely disputed memorandum based on sensitive government secrets. Taken together, the actions suggest a pattern of partisanship and unilateral action by the once bipartisan House panel. It is rather shocking, really, when you think about it. Fox News published the text messages, which were sent via a secure messaging application in early February. President Trump and other Republicans loyal to him quickly jumped on the report to try to discredit Mr. Warner, suggesting that the senator was acting surreptitiously to try to talk with the former British spy who assembled that dossier of salacious claims about Mr. Trump and his associates in Russia. Do you remember that story? Wow. Everything connects eventually. We'll be back to talk about it after this. Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I hope we got the timing right, and we don't have to do too much fixing in post-production to get that time out right. When we left off, though, we were discussing, what the hell were we doing again? Ah, yes, remind me. Yeah, we were talking about the leak of the text messages from Senator Warner that the Senate Intelligence Committee had traced back to the House Intelligence Committee. What a strange turn of events, except, of course, if you've watched anything that Devin Nunes, chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, has been doing since, I don't know, forever. Remember, then, that the text messages were leaked just days after those House Republicans had released their very weird and very questionable memo over the objections of the FBI. And the Times writers here, and I don't know if I properly credited them before beginning them. It was just one. It's a one-man byline to Nicholas Fandos. Dateline yesterday, March 1st. Okay, so he, in concluding that paragraph, says, taken together, the actions suggested a pattern of partisanship and unilateral action by the once bipartisan House panel. Fox News published the text messages, which were sent via a secure messaging application. I guess it's not that secure. In early February, President Trump and other Republicans loyal to him quickly jumped on the report to try to discredit Mr. Warner, suggesting that the senator was acting surreptitiously to try to talk with, I guess, Christopher Steele, whom they only list here as the former British spy who assembled a dossier of salacious claims about connections between Mr. Trump and his associates in Russia. Wow, Senator Mark Warner got caught having extensive contact with a lobbyist for a Russian oligarch, Mr. Trump wrote at the time. What? Okay. Warner did not want a paper trail on a private meeting in London he requested with Steele of fraudulent dossier fame. All tied to crooked Hillary, Mr. Trump added. He's so crazy. The messages between Mr. Warner and, oh, look at this, Adam Waldman, who is not me, a Washington lawyer, who's also not me, show that the senator tried for weeks to arrange a meeting with the former spy, Christopher Steele. Now, didn't House intelligence Republicans try to do that too, and they just did it so poorly that it never happened, and they were supposed to have notified somebody from an embassy staff, and they didn't do that? Warner appears to have gone through proper channels. It just didn't come off. The Senate committee has had difficulty making contact with Mr. Steele, whom it views as a key witness, and Mr. Waldman, not me, who knew Mr. Steele, presented himself as a willing partner. The Fox News article made prominent mention of work by Mr. Waldman's Washington lobbying firm, I didn't even know I had one, on behalf of Oleg V. Deripaska, a Russian aluminum magnate, who was once close to Paul Manafort, Mr. Trump's indicted former campaign chairman. Interesting. Copies of the messages were originally submitted by Mr. Waldman, this is very funny, to the Senate committee. In January, one of Mr. Nunes' staff members requested that copies be shared with the House committee as well, according to a person familiar with the request who was not authorized to talk about it publicly. Days later, the messages were published by Fox News, the person said. Fox's report said that it had obtained the documents from a Republican source it did not name. The documents published by Fox News appear to back up the senator's accusation. Although they were marked confidential, produced to USS SCI on a confidential basis, suggesting they had come from the Senate panel known as the United States Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. The person familiar with the congressional requests said the stamp was misleading and that other markings gave away their actual origins. Wow. So like some forgery going on here. Specifically, the copy of the messages shared with the Senate was paginated, and the one submitted to the House, while preserving the reference to the Senate committee, was unpaginated. A lawyer for Mr. Waldman independently concluded that the House committee had probably shared the document and sent the letter to Mr. Nunes complaining about the leak, according to a person familiar with the letter. Wow. Mr. Burr, do I understand this correctly? Amazing. Let me continue with this. Mr. Burr appeared to make a veiled reference to the text messages during a public hearing with the heads of government's intelligence agencies last month. There have been times when information has found its way out, some of it recent, where it didn't come from us, but certainly people have portrayed it did, he said. And that's okay, because you know and we know the security measures we've got in place to protect the sensitivity of that material. In a statement, a spokesman for Mr. Nunes, Jack Langer, did not dispute that the committee had leaked the messages, but called the premise of this article absurd. The New York Times, a prominent purveyor of leaks, is highlighting anonymous sources leaking information that accuses Republicans of leaking information, he said. I'm not sure if this coverage could possibly get any more absurd. Ashley Strong, a spokeswoman for Mr. Ryan, declined to comment. In his meeting with the senators, Mr. Ryan made clear that he heard their complaints. I hear you. 5, I hear you. But noted that he did not run the committee himself. The officials briefed on the encounter said, really, that's your excuse. Whew. Members of the Senate Intelligence Committee were briefed on their conclusions in recent weeks and on the meeting with Mr. Ryan. In a joint statement, Mr. Burr and Mr. Warner acknowledged the meeting with Mr. Ryan and said they had not requested that the Speaker take any specific action. Mr. Waldman, the lawyer who communicated with Mr. Warner, could not be reached for comment. I was asleep. The incident makes clear just how far the two intelligence committees, generally considered secretive refuges from the politics of Capitol Hill, have diverged over the course of their Russia investigations. In the House, Republicans and Democrats have been consumed by partisan sniping, airing grievances on television and in the press, while the pace of witness interviews has slowed to a crawl. Democrats have repeatedly accused Mr. Nunes of using his position to protect Mr. Trump from the investigation. The House committee spent much of the last month locked in a bitter dispute over the secret Republican memorandum, which accused top FBI and Justice Department officials of abusing their powers to spy on one of Mr. Trump's former campaign advisors. Republicans released the document over the objections of the Justice Department and the FBI, which warned in a rare public statement that it was dangerously misleading. Democrats called the document reckless and said it was merely a political tool to tarnish the agencies investigating Mr. Trump's potential ties to Russia. They eventually released their own memo, drawn from the same underlying material, rebutting it. The Senate committee has conducted its investigation primarily in private, and Mr. Burr and Mr. Warner remained in lockstep both publicly and privately. When Fox News published Mr. Warner's text messages, for example, an aide to Mr. Burr told the network that he had been aware of Mr. Warner's contacts with Mr. Waldman, and the two senators issued a joint statement condemning the leak. Senator Marco Rubio, Republican of Florida and another member of the Intelligence Committee, also defended Mr. Warner. There's a Marco Rubio tweet embedded in here that reads, Senator Warner fully disclosed this to the committee 4 months ago, has had zero impact on our work. That is the reference in Fox News to Warner's texts with Russian oligarch lobbyist, I guess, is what they're talking about, in an effort, as they say, to contact the dossier author, Christopher Steele. And while Mr. Nunes' memo consumed Republicans in the House as well as officials in the White House, Mr. Burr largely steered clear of it. He told CNN it ought not to have been released, and in private he discounted it. In the hearing with the intelligence chiefs last month, he sought to draw a distinction between his committee's approach and that of the House. I promised you when we started a year ago that the sensitive nature of that material would in fact be protected. The vice chairman and I have done everything in our power to do that. So at least, I guess he's sort of taking his charge seriously, whereas others might not be doing so in the strictest sense. There was a part I wanted to double back and take a look at, and maybe I can scroll up and find it without losing too much time here, but I wish I had like sticky notes I could have put on the thing to remember where it was that I wanted to go to. Oh yes, right. There was some hint that the leak had come from the Republicans on the House committee, but that the same people who leaked the texts also complained to Devin Nunes about leaking going on, and that they thought it was really the Senate doing the leak. They were like trying to set up the Senate. Is that what was happening? Let's take a look at that and see if I can't. I'm going to have to take a pause perhaps and find that information. Where is this thing? Can I just turn it up in the middle here? All right, hang on a sec. Okay, here it is. Okay, and I see I've misinterpreted it here. I read it, I guess I read it a little too quickly. Remember this section here that said, specifically, the copy of the messages shared with the Senate was paginated, and the one submitted to the House, while preserving the reference to the Senate committee, was unpaginated. And then a lawyer for Mr. Waldman independently concluded that the House committee had probably shared the document and sent a letter to Mr. Nunes complaining about the leak, right? I think I first interpreted that to mean that the lawyer concluded that the House committee had shared the document and that the House committee had likewise sent a letter to Mr. Nunes complaining about the leak, which would have been an amazing thing to do, but not entirely out of keeping with something that I just read not that long ago, read about on Twitter. Now, what actually happened here is the article is saying, the lawyer for Mr. Waldman independently concludes that the House committee probably shared the document. And then the lawyer for Mr. Waldman, having realized that, then sent a letter himself to Mr. Nunes complaining about the leak, saying, your boys are doing the leaking here and you got to do something about it. Not the committee Republicans on the House side doing the leaking and then complaining to Nunes, hey, we found a leak, and trying to pin it on somebody else. But that just happened. I guess that's why I was initially confused, because that would be like totally absurd and, beyond the pale, you would think. But let me dig up what I just saw go by on Twitter not all that long ago. I'm going to have to scroll back a little bit. And remember, I have to scroll all the way back to yesterday, even though today is yesterday for me. But for you, today is tomorrow, and yesterday is yesterday, not today. And you get the idea. I have to do a lot of scrolling. Here we go. Christina Lopez has, Christina Lopez G, and I guess she's abbreviated her last name, a wonky scribbler for Media Matters for America. She describes herself that way. She's got this tweet here that, I'm going to have to scroll again. Give me a break. Was really caught my eye because it was just bizarro accusation. Fun plot twist in the YouTube striking and suspension of accounts of right-wing trolls that these right-wing trolls are calling censorship. Let's just bring up this thread because it's pretty weird and wacky. Here's the deal. A lot of I don't know. I have not followed this story, but I guess the background here is lots of alt-right trolls are being kicked off of YouTube and I guess other social media. And they're complaining that, of course, they're being censored, that these snowflake organizations are censoring their right to free speech. The fun plot twist, as Christina puts it, is that a lot of the flagging and reporting that results in their banning from these social media platforms is being done by the alt-right trolls themselves, or perhaps some other subset of alt-right trolls, not in a power struggle for supremacy among alt-right trolls on social media, but in order to get what is written here as large content producers, that is, people who provide lots and lots of videos on YouTube or lots of Twitter content or Facebook content, to get all of those large content producers banned. And then approach them and say, so you were banned from YouTube, banned from Twitter, banned from Facebook. Well, we have a solution for you to get them to migrate to their alt tech platforms. And the first tweet here embeds a screen cap of, I guess, some other, I can't tell off the bat. I guess it's Twitter discussion from among a number of alt-right figures here. James Alsop is the first here, who I guess is maybe they're using their own new Twitter-like platform. It says, I commend BitChute, like chutes and ladders, CHUTE, BitChute, PewTube, PEWTUB. Like instead of YouTube, it's PewTube, because I guess, is that supposed to be named after that PewDiePie YouTuber / racist or what? I don't know. I commend BitChute, PewTube, etc. for building alternate video platforms, but the fact is that no mass migration will take place unless large creators lead it, and large creators won't leave YouTube without financial incentive. It's that simple. Then some replies from other alt-right folks, I guess, here. Corporation Camp answering, unless they get banned. This is why I actually support Anglin's strategy of mass reporting wankers like Sargon, Cernovich, etc. If we're going down, the enablers are coming with us. And the next participant in the discussion says, true, which is why it's up to us to bail on them or utilize ad blockers to reduce the incentive to stay to non-existent, which I've been doing for years now. Interesting. Christina Lopez then follows up with this piece here, this post on Twitter. Neo-Nazi Andrew Anglin, I guess that's who they were talking about, actually wants people like Alex Jones to get banned so that without the civility limits imposed by different platforms' terms of service, he'll be unleashed. And I guess screen cap from maybe Facebook discussion about InfoWars ensues. So interesting. I guess that's sort of super clever in a way, and might be that's what confused me about misreading that one paragraph from the previous article, thinking that somehow House Intelligence Committee Republicans both leaked the texts and wrote a letter to Devin Nunes complaining about leaks. Like, I don't know exactly what the advantage of doing that was supposed to have been, but this stupid, insane / perhaps evil genius plan over here, except that I don't think it'll really work out for them. It will probably encourage people to migrate to some other platform because they've been banned. It's just that nobody is going to see it on this new platform. So I encourage you to actually do that. I don't mind if you go ahead and move to a platform nobody is going to see. But it put me in mind of that wacko plan, and I just thought, man, these House Republicans are much more far gone than even I ever thought. And that may still be true. It's just that paragraph isn't the proof of it. All right, moving on then to a story I hinted at yesterday, which is for me still today, but for you is now today, but was then tomorrow. The story from the Boston Globe, written by Astrid Herndon. Did I get that right? Republicans are not just attached to Trump, they're his customers too. This was the story of the various Republican campaign committees and the party committees raffling off trips to Trump properties. This is intriguing, I would say. I thought I'd enter this one onto the record and see whether this becomes part of the wider trap into which Trump falls. There are at least 230 wineries in the state of Virginia, but when a campaign arm of House Republicans recently chose to host the winners of a fundraising contest, it was the Vineyard in Charlottesville, owned by President Trump and operated by his family. I guess some of the very fine people that show up on both sides in Charlottesville. We'll take care of the hotel, flight, and send you to an exclusive Mother's Day brunch for you and your family. A description of the Mother's Day prize package reads, noting that the retail value runs close to $2,850. Last month, the Republican National Committee announced a chance for two great Americans, or whoever wins, to get an all-expenses-paid trip to Trump's private Mar-a-Lago club in Florida to attend one of the exclusive dinners the president has with members of the club, which is a problem in and of itself. Republicans, once ethically squeamish about blending Trump's business and political operations in Washington, when was that, are now seizing on the cachet of the president's upscale brands to help raise money and thwart Democrats in the 2018 midterms. It's the selling of the presidency to an extent which we've never seen before. We've made the presidency a marketing tool, and a political party is joining in this effort, said Larry Noble, a former general counsel of the Federal Elections Commission, who is currently senior director at the Nonpartisan Campaign Legal Center, a Washington ethics watchdog. I don't remember another situation like this. Neither of the Republican committees nor the White House responded to several requests for comment. Why would they? It's only incriminating. Former President Bill Clinton famously allowed fat cat political contributors to stay overnight in the Lincoln bedroom of the White House during the 1990s generating intense controversy. But raffling off access to the luxury properties of a sitting president appears to be something new. The National Republican Congressional Committee, the arm charged with preserving the party's majority in the House during the upcoming 2018 midterm elections, announced the Mother's Day fundraiser in February, inviting people to, quote, donate $10 for a chance to receive an all-expenses-paid trip to Charlottesville, Virginia, and stay at the Trump Winery. The Republican National Committee's contest for donors to win a dinner at Mar-a-Lago was a raffle that didn't require a political contribution, but linked participants to a fundraising page after they submitted their names. It offered a round-trip ticket to Palm Beach and admittance to a dinner commemorating Trump's inauguration to be held at the private club. Oh, is this a makeup for the one he had to skip? All right, great. The contest rules stated the retail value of the trip was $3,000. Trump ultimately did not attend the January 20th event. Oh, I see. Okay, this was the one he missed, not a makeup for it, because he remained in Washington to deal with the government shutdown that weekend. Would you feel ripped off if you missed out on that one? The party is helping promote his businesses, just like he's using the presidency to promote his business, said Richard Painter, a former ethics lawyer for George W. Bush. Trump is sending the message that his businesses and the United States government are very much intertwined. And by the way, the Republican Party is sending that same message with these fundraisers. In the past, White House officials have consistently shrugged off any suggestion that Trump's expansive business interests present any conflict for the president or his family. But determining where Trump's political influence ends and his business interests begin has become increasingly difficult over the last year. The general reaction among establishment politicians in Washington, after a flurry of attention soon after Trump's inauguration, has been a collective shrug. And that's largely because the majority of the establishment politicians in Washington have been Republicans, and they know it would hurt them to tell the truth about what message is really being sent here. In Washington, the gold-plated rooms of the Trump International Hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue, less than 10 blocks from the White House, have become a hub for those who crave access to the politically powerful, with some conservative figures refusing to meet with reporters anywhere else. President Trump has made no secret of his desire to profit from the presidency, and these party-related events at his properties are more examples of that, said Norman Eisen, board chairman of Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington and a former White House lawyer. This is a transgression of long-standing presidential practice, Eisen said. Presidents of both parties have long separated from their businesses in order to, among other things, avoid exactly this kind of exploitation. Or, as we know, even the appearance of it. When Trump visited the Trump International Hotel in Hawaii with Chief of Staff John Kelly in November, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders praised the hotel, a private business Trump has promised to separate himself from while in office. The president stopped by the Trump Hotel on his way to the airport, Sanders said. It has been a tremendously successful project, and he wanted to say hello and thank you to the employees for all their hard work. Trump shocked legal observers in 2016 when he announced during the presidential transition that he would not divest from his companies during his White House tenure, but rather hand operating responsibility over to his two sons, who promised to separate family financial interests from government matters. He held a press conference in the lobby of Trump Tower, which served as the de facto transition headquarters, where he displayed stacks of paperwork as proof the family was doing the hard work of separating their personal businesses from their soon-to-be government roles. Of course, those papers were blank, and he displayed nothing, and you didn't even get to look at them anyway, so it doesn't matter. Still, Trump's refusal to divest was one of the first true controversies of his presidency, and critics say his decision signaled to everyone from Republican lawmakers to lobbyists from foreign governments a surefire way to legally line the president's pocket. Since Trump entered office, GOP lawmakers and their campaigns have spent thousands holding fundraisers at Trump-branded properties, and membership prices have skyrocketed at Trump golf courses and at his private club in Florida. The Trump Organization, which had promised to pay all profits made from foreign governments during Trump's tenure to the U.S. Treasury, sent a check to the Treasury Department for an undisclosed sum of money this week. I'm sure it was all of it. The Trump Organization refused to provide additional details on how much money foreign governments had spent since Trump's inauguration or name those doing the spending. Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law and a senior White House advisor, was denied a permanent security clearance this week, partly over concerns that his real estate holdings could create conflicts of interest with his foreign policy work, according to a report from the Washington Post. Donald Trump Jr., the president's son, who holds no public office and is the interim head of the Trump Organization while his father is in Washington, recently blurred ethical lines when he used a private trip to India to give a speech on foreign relations. Such examples are part of what forced Walter Schaub to resign last July as director of the U.S. Office of Government Ethics. He has since emerged as one of the White House's harshest critics on Twitter, particularly when it comes to ethical dilemmas. In what universe is this gigantic Trump conflict of interest and potential national security risk even a little bit okay? Spoiler alert, none. He tweeted last week in response to a Forbes report that said the Trump Organization made more than $125 million from commercial tenants last year. This metastasized conflicts of interest cancer started spreading the moment Trump refused to divest his conflicts of interest. I warned before his inauguration that the rot at the top would spread, Schaub tweeted another time. But the challenge facing Schaub, Painter, and other ethics lawyers is one of enforcement. Though each are quick to point out how Trump and his family are flouting presidential conventions, it is unclear whether any of that amounts to a broken law. And even if it did, it is even more unclear that any government arm would go about forcing changes within the Trump administration. What we have to look at is what rules do we need in the future to limit this type of abuse, Noble said. Now, this next sentence has been mangled in the editing process here. I'm going to have to sort of reconstruct it. It says, we're being whipsawed ethically, and Republicans, I gather, seem to have made no decision about challenging this or slowing this down. That's the best reconstruction I can give you for this sentence. One nonprofit, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, or CREW, sued Trump along with an association of restaurants over the hotel ownership. The lawsuit alleged that Trump was in violation of the Foreign Emoluments Clause of the Constitution. We're very familiar with that one, of course, which states the president or any other federal official cannot take gifts or payments from foreign governments. The lawsuit was dismissed in December of 2017 because the judge said the plaintiffs lacked proper standing to sue. CREW filed an appeal in January. On its website, CREW has a timeline of more than 500 alleged conflicts of interest involving Trump, from business entanglements to golf course appearances. Trump has been in office for all of 404 days, at least as the time of this writing. All of that pretty familiar with us, but a good recounting of all of those problems. We will be back after this short break with more. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show. We are here on Netroots Radio as always, and into the second hour of today's Friday program. I got a good piece here I think that might make a nice transition for us from the, we can bring the gun issue slowly back into focus, but still stay on Trump, Russia, Trump corruption, and other Trump-related issues. So let's go over to this one. Some late-breaking stuff from Thursday evening that we're able to work into today's program. There's a bunch of stories came out that likely the talk of the town by now, Friday morning, including an NPR piece that Greg actually shared with me, and I have seen much passed around on Thursday evening. Let's open it up here and get to the original so we can make sure we get all of our details correct here. Tim Mack, our author here, although is there a recorded piece as well? You know, it's NPR after all, but we're on the written side here. Depth of Russian politicians' cultivation of NRA ties revealed. So nice transition between Trump, Russia, and the gun issue, in case we need to flip back to that one. Let's take a look. Oh, it begins with an update. Updated at 10:25 p.m. Eastern Time, to give you an idea of how long I've been working on this show for you. A prominent Kremlin-linked Russian politician has methodically cultivated ties with leaders of the National Rifle Association and documented efforts in real time over 6 years to leverage those connections and gain access deeper into American politics, NPR has learned. Russian politician Alexander Torshin claimed his ties to the National Rifle Association provided him access to Donald Trump and the opportunity to serve as a foreign election observer in the United States during the 2012 election. Torshin is a prolific Twitter user, logging nearly 150,000 tweets, mostly in Russian, since his account was created in 2011. Previously obscured by language and by sheer volume of tweets, Torshin has written numerous times about his connections with the NRA, of which he's a known paid lifetime member. That doesn't really mean quite as much as it sounds like. A paid lifetime membership is a minimal amount of money, as I understand it, and kind of almost like the default individual membership in the NRA. When you buy a gun here in the United States, you're basically almost automatically enrolled. And I think $25 or so buys you a lifetime membership. But still, it's unusual for, I guess, used to be unusual for a Russian to be a member of the National Rifle Association because, of course, back in the old days, people joined the National Rifle Association and kept guns at home to keep Russians out of America and American politics. And now they are the vanguard for their invasion. So that's a little weird, I admit. Okay, let's see. We left off with the lifetime membership. NPR has translated a selection of those posts to Twitter that document Torshin's relationship to the group. These revelations come amid news that the FBI is investigating whether Torshin, the deputy governor of the Bank of Russia, illegally funneled money to the National Rifle Association to assist the Trump campaign in 2016, McClatchy reported in January. In a letter to Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon, a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, the NRA denied any wrongdoing and suggested the FBI is investigating Torshin, not the NRA. Or rather, the FBI is investigating Torshin and not the NRA. Okay, neither the NRA nor Torshin responded to inquiries from NPR. Investigations by Congress and the Department of Justice have revealed that the Russian government has sought to sharpen political divisions among American citizens by amplifying controversial social issues. Investigators have expressed concern about Russian links to the NRA, one of the most politically polarizing organizations in the U.S., and that's all by itself, of course, without even the addition of the Russians into the picture. Torshin is a former Russian senator and served as the deputy speaker of Russia's parliament for more than a decade. Known as a Putin ally, he also spent time on Russia's National Anti-Terrorism Committee, a state body that includes the director of Russia's Internal Security Service and the ministers of Defense, Interior, and Foreign Affairs. Torshin's use of NRA connections to open doors and his 2015 claim to know Trump through the organization raise new questions about the group's connections with Russian officials, at a time when the organization is being roundly criticized by its opponents and, at times, the president himself for opposition to gun control. The president has also defined the group in recent days as the gun debate has reemerged in the wake of a Florida school shooting, including a tweet calling the group's leaders great American patriots. The NRA has been a key part of Trump's conservative base. After a meeting with lawmakers in which Trump angered many conservatives for entertaining proposals for gun control, that fantasy is over, by the way, and was over by Thursday night. The president tweeted that he had another meeting with NRA leaders in the Oval Office on Thursday night. That's how we know it's ended. That tweet embedded here, simply saying, good, parentheses, great. I don't know why he didn't just say great. Meeting in the Oval Office tonight with the NRA, exclamation point. On his verified Twitter account, Torshin talked about how he knew Donald Trump through the NRA, citing a connection at the group's 2015 convention. Responding to a tweet about comedian Larry David accusing Trump of being a racist, Torshin said he knew the businessman through the NRA and defended him. Here are in some more of the translated tweets in which he says, a comedian should make people laugh, right? So he's trying. I know D. Trump, that very Russian abbreviation. I know D. Trump through NRA, a decent person. I saw him in Nashville in April 2015, Torshin added later, the date and site of the NRA's 2015 convention, which was good news for the people of Nashville who experienced apparently 20% fewer accidental shootings at that time, which we learned yesterday thanks to the New England Journal of Medicine. Trump gave a speech at that convention, the outlines of which would become familiar as his stump speech throughout the 2016 presidential campaign. The White House did not respond to repeated requests for comment by NPR, but denied Trump has ever met Torshin to Bloomberg News in 2017. Among his tens of thousands of tweets, Torshin also documented his attendance at every NRA convention between 2012 and 2016. Well, it's safer there than anywhere else, I guess. Only some of which have been previously reported. Torshin's attendance at the NRA convention in 2016 is where he reportedly met with Donald Trump Jr. Torshin had made repeated attempts to meet with Donald Trump himself at that convention during the presidential election year, but there is no evidence of this occurring. A conservative activist with ties to Torshin, to Torshin aide Maria Butina, you remember her? Reached out to the Trump campaign in 2016 saying that Russia was quietly but actively seeking a dialogue with the U.S. and would try to use the NRA convention to make first contact, the New York Times reported. Of course, the United States and Russia have been in contact before, so that's kind of an odd way of putting it. Putin is deadly serious about building a good relationship with Mr. Trump, the activist Paul Erickson wrote. He wants to extend an invitation to Mr. Trump to visit him in the Kremlin before the election. Erickson has business ties to Butina, having started an LLC with her in South Dakota. Like, no mention of what that LLC is or does. We already know, maybe, from our last time reading stories about Maria Butina, and I've forgotten. That's just an odd and stilted way of stating things. Starting an LLC with her. Really, the corporate form. I mean, I know that's shorthand these days, but okay, whatever. Torshin has used his repeated trips to NRA conventions to cultivate relationships with top NRA officials, and his Twitter account documents that he has personally met with every person who has been president of the NRA since 2012. I don't know how many of them there are, but okay, that's the way we'll put it. On Twitter, Torshin portrayed these meetings as more than merely casual encounters. We should play some like porn music in the background or something. More than merely casual encounter. Okay. In 2017, he tweeted that he was bringing a gift to then NRA President Alan Kors and suggested he was familiar with Kors's hobbies. And the big gift is a big illustrated book of different Russian tanks. That must be some kind of hobby he's got there. Kors is the founder of the Virginia Museum of Military Vehicles. According to its website. In a public Dropbox album that Torshin linked to from his Twitter account, he's seen meeting with former NRA President Jim Porter, as well as former NRA President David Keene. His tweets suggest a long-time relationship with Keene, who repeatedly appears in photos as Torshin documents his visits, suggesting that their meeting was not merely coincidental. Keene did not respond to a request for comment. Torshin has also met the current president of the NRA, Pete Brownell. Brownell was part of an NRA delegation that visited Moscow in 2015, which means we've heard of him. These relationships that he cultivated appeared to open another door. Torshin came to the United States in 2012 as an international election observer and watched as ballots were cast during the Obama-Romney presidential contest in Tennessee. This was possible, he wrote, due to his NRA links. Tennessee resident Klein Preston requested Mr. Torshin to be an international observer in November 2012. Adam Gassimi, a spokesman for the Tennessee Secretary of State, told NPR. The Washington Post reported last year that Preston, a Tennessee lawyer, was the one who originally introduced Torshin to former NRA President David Keene back in 2011. I would pause at this point, I think, to note that at this particular moment in time, with the strange but well-known relationship between, let's say, the Trump camp and the alt-right and Russia, it doesn't seem quite as bizarre, but thinking back to 2011, the idea of a Tennessee Republican inviting a Russian to be an international election observer is kind of strange, to be honest. And it's not as strange as it might have been, of course, as would have been, say, inviting them in, I don't know, 1956 or something like that. But for to do it in 2011, I guess it would be a little less strange. We weren't in a hostile, Cold War situation. And I guess we sort of thought of ourselves, generally speaking, as, in at least, if not at peace or in peaceful times, peaceful relationship, but in some sort of détente, I guess, with the post-Soviet Russians. But they wouldn't be tops on your list as international election observers if you were making a list, I think. I suppose if somebody requested it of you and you said, I don't think we need election observers at all, but it's apparently, if it's a customary thing, sure, by all means, you're international and I know you and you want me to do it, and I have, I don't know what you have like 10 chits. You can bring in a certain number of people or suggest a certain number of people. I suppose first come, first serve. A Russian asked me, I'd do it. I could accept that as an explanation. Normally Russia wouldn't be where you'd go first if you approach the question from the standpoint of, hey, I've been asked to come up with some suggestions for international election observers because, we just need to prove the validity of our elections every once in a while. And it's a practice we're into. I don't know that I would say, well, who's really good with that is Russians. But, it might also be a situation where they say, I need somebody international. I don't know anybody. My Canadian girlfriend was a fake from the beginning. Oh, I know a Russian guy. I'll invite him. Maybe it happened that way. It just seems unusual to me. The heat is on the Russian politician, Torshin, of course, who was alleged by Spanish police, oh yes, remember this, to have directed financial transactions for the Russian mob. Not only is the FBI reportedly investigating him, the Bureau declined comment for this story, but lawmakers involved in congressional investigations have also expressed interest in Torshin. Both the House and Senate Intelligence Committees, if you care about the House side, are currently engaged in investigations into potential ties between the Trump campaign and Russia. No, they're not. One of them is, not the House. Wyden, the top Democrat on the Senate Finance Committee and a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, has demanded the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network hand over documents related to Torshin and the NRA. The NRA and its related entities do not accept funds from foreign persons or entities in connection with the United States elections. NRA General Counsel John Fraser wrote in response to a request from Wyden to turn over documents related to transactions between the NRA and Russian citizens. NRA political decisions are made by NRA officers and executive staff, all of whom are United States citizens. No foreign nationals are consulted in any way on these decisions. Allegedly. Representative Adam Schiff, the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, told NPR this week that the committee's members have asked relevant witnesses about the NRA through the course of their investigation. I can't go into what we've been able to learn thus far on that issue. I can tell you it's one of deep concern to me and to other members of the committee, and that we got to the bottom of these allegations that the Russians may have sought to funnel money through the NRA, Schiff said. It would be negligent of us not to investigate. Glenn Simpson, the co-founder of research firm Fusion GPS, alluded to Torshin and the NRA during his closed-door testimony before the House Intelligence Committee in November. It appears the Russians, infiltrated the NRA. And there is more than one explanation for why, Simpson told lawmakers. But I would say, broadly speaking, it appears that the Russian operation was designed to infiltrate conservative organizations. And they targeted various conservative organizations, religious and otherwise, and they seem to have made a very concerted effort to get in with the NRA. Not only are congressional investigators interested in the NRA's relationship with Russia, but this inquiry comes as the NRA is receiving additional pressure from groups hoping to pass additional gun restrictions into law, and dozens of American companies have cut ties with the NRA in the wake of the Parkland, Florida shooting last month. It's March 1st, so now it gets to be last month. These revelations suggest that for years the NRA courted a top Putin ally who is now reportedly attracting scrutiny from the FBI. John Feinblatt, president of Everytown for Gun Safety, told NPR. NRA leaders still haven't explained their close relationship with Russian officials in Putin's orbit. Until they do, people will continue to wonder what the NRA is hiding. An interesting development, to say the least. There is more from the Thursday night files, including some reporting from CNBC on America First Policies, one of the dark money groups that is connected with Trump, and I guess the place where they deposited Katrina Pearson. You remember her and her bullet necklace? We haven't seen her lately. That's where a lot of the ousted Trump campaign staffers or people who never made the cut for White House service or administration service in the first place go to. Now consider all the people who are working in the administration or in the White House who shouldn't have security clearances but do, or have just had them revoked in some cases. Imagine what kind of person you're talking about when you're talking about Katrina Pearson, who could never even get the temporary pass to work in the White House. They shunted her aside to this thing right away. Dark money group America First Policies is running a pro-Trump polling operation. Here is an inside look at its secretive work. And it's always scary when there's something secretive going on. A couple of bullet points pulled out up at the top here. This, by the way, look at this, reported by Christina Wilkie, now working, I guess, at CNBC. You know I can't keep track of these things, but good to know. America First Policies, a nonprofit group with close ties to President Donald Trump, has hired Trump's pollsters to conduct a wide range of political polling and research. Maybe Greg can discuss this a little bit on Monday. The practice breaks with decades of tradition and raises concerns about potential coordination between the dark money group, the White House, and the RNC. If it's illegal, you can bet they're doing it. CNBC, over the past 6 months, obtained more than 50 documents through an obscure portal on the America First Policies website. Ooh, they hacked them. Sorta, kinda. Well, it makes it sound glamorous, right? If we say they hacked them. America First Policies, a nonprofit group with close ties to President Donald Trump, has hired Trump's pollsters to conduct a wide range of political polling and research that experts say resembles the kind of expensive work the Republican National Committee has performed for prior GOP administrations. Such a practice breaks with decades of tradition and raises concerns about potential coordination, which would be illegal, between the pro-Trump dark money group, the White House, and the RNC. America First Policies and the RNC have denied coordinating, of course. The White House did not respond to multiple requests for comment. Over the past 6 months, CNBC has obtained more than 50 documents through an obscure portal on the America First Policies website. Much of what the group polls and surveys would be standard work for a presidential campaign or a major political party, but America First Policies, which was founded days after Trump's inauguration, is not a campaign or a party. It's what the IRS calls a social welfare organization, which is something that they should look into and revoke because there's no chance that what they're after is social welfare. Same stands, by the way, for the NRA. That should be reviewed as well. Anywho, that's in fantasy land. They'll never do anything about that. Social welfare organization. It's permitted then to operate tax-free and keep its donors secret as long as its main focus isn't politics. Well, that ain't happening. And it doesn't coordinate with candidates, which it's doing. But, again, who has to rule on that? Will they do anything but bicker and come out in a tie vote and be unable to do anything and have no sanctions to bring to bear to them anyway? Yeah, probably. Election lawyers typically interpret those restrictions, as I had listed them, to mean 51% of a group's activities must be issue-related. Our primary purpose has to be issue-related, only 51% worth. But that doesn't mean we can't throw in questions that are news-related or political, even, in our polling, said Aaron Montgomery, Communications Director for America First Policies. Last summer, America First Policies took an unprecedented step for a politically allied nonprofit. It started using 3 top polling firms from Trump's 2016 presidential campaign to produce a steady stream of Trump-focused polls, strategy memos, and reports that continue to this day. The 3 firms initially put their own logos on the polling that they did for the group, but over time, the America First Policies logo gradually replaced theirs on some of the documents. America First Policies, which actively advocates for policies favored by Trump, denied that any of the documents, many of which are labeled confidential, were intended to benefit the White House or the president. What a strange contention. We have very clear lines and high walls between us and the RNC and the administration or the Trump campaign, Montgomery said. We just do everything they want. Yet the lines between the group, the White House, and Trump's campaign are often blurred. This week, Trump announced that Brad Parscale, the founder of America First Policies and a senior advisor to the group who also ran digital operations for Trump's 2016 campaign, will lead his 2020 re-election bid. Former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski, who is known to stay in close contact with Trump, is also a senior advisor to America First Policies. Last week, Lewandowski reportedly met with the president and chief of staff John Kelly in the Oval Office 2 days before Trump gave a freewheeling campaign-style speech at the annual CPAC conference. Another key advisor to America First Policies, former Trump campaign spokeswoman Katrina Pearson, recently posted this photo of herself with the president online from a White House reception ahead of Trump's first State of the Union address on January 30th. And of course, it's your standard everybody give a thumbs up and a dumb frozen smile photo. This was 3 months after a group of senior advisors to America First Policies, including Lewandowski, Parscale, and Executive Director Brian Walsh, huddled with top administration officials in the White House in late October, plotting strategies to push tax reform. Montgomery and Walsh both told CNBC that America First Policies gives its polling data to its allies while abiding by the high walls and clear lines separation from Trump. In January alone, this data included more than a dozen surveys and memos on topics that ranged from marijuana legalization to how the White House handled the release of Fire and Fury, a tell-all book about the Trump administration. Some of these documents were posted online and then removed, while others remained posted. We share our polling with lots of outside groups and elected officials, and we put all of them up online, said Montgomery. I don't know if this information is ever shared with the White House. I have no idea. Anyone can see it. They just put it out there, and everyone who knows that it's there and maybe gets a note that says so can go and read it. You get the idea. In the old world of political polling, things were kept secret. In the new world, you make everything public, Walsh said. Yet, after CNBC spoke to Walsh and Montgomery on Wednesday, several of the research documents from January appeared to have been removed from the site by Thursday morning, including the results of polling on marijuana, analysis of how women view Trump, and January's polling results. Dozens of other documents have also been removed from the site, but left up on the web apparently by accident. Walsh was under the impression that they had all been permanently deleted, and he accused CNBC of acquiring the reports from someone inside the group's network. Walsh also refused to share several additional documents that CNBC requested, because he's into making everything public, you see. A lot of what America First Policies has learned from its polling is not flattering to the Trump White House. Moreover, a significant portion of the polling shows that issues important to Trump are not necessarily important to voters. Below are some of the key details spread throughout the group's research and polling. Building a wall along the southern border is not only unpopular with Democrats and independents, even Trump's base voters ranked the construction of a wall as their least important policy issue in a January survey. You might not have guessed that one. A September poll showed that America First Policies was exploring ways to defeat Arizona Republican Senator Jeff Flake in a primary, a month before Flake, a Trump critic, announced his retirement. When Fire and Fury came out in January, an America First Policies social media report noted that few people seemed to notice the White House banned personal cell phones in the West Wing that same week. According to the group's February polling, The largest percentage of voters agreed with Nancy Pelosi's comment that worker bonuses stemming from the GOP tax bill were crumbs compared with corporate windfalls. The February survey also found that only half of respondents agreed with Trump's plan for military parade, while voters disagreed with the way he handled a scandal involving a senior White House aide accused of domestic abuse. You probably all remember who that is. We'll come back to the conclusion of this article after one more quick break. We'll be right back in about 2 minutes. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning, interrupting this little break to say thanks so much to all of you who are contributing supporters of Kagro in the Morning. Thousands of you are downloading the show each day, but fewer than 1 in 25 regular listeners are donating to help keep us on the air. For the money you'd spend on a single 3-minute iTunes song, we bring you 2 hours of great news and entertainment every day, 5 days a week. Patreon.com, Patreon.com makes it easy. You can find us there by searching KagroX or David Waldman or Kagro in the Morning or even Daily Coast Radio in their search box, and you'll be right where you need to be to make easy, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Once again, thanks so much for your support. Welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio as we head into our concluding segment here. And let's see, where did we leave off here? Oh, I want to make sure I coordinate things properly with all of our timing. Yes, we left off with the last bullet point about the polling results that they had gotten over there at America First Policies. And then this roundup comment here at the bottom of the bullets we did not get to yet. AFP is doing the type of polling that would typically be done by a presidential campaign or a major party committee like the RNC or the DNC, said Brendan Fisher, an election law expert at the nonprofit Campaign Legal Center. So even though they claim to be committed to a set of issues, the available evidence here indicates that they're operating as a polling shop for the president. Now, this section, a door to a treasure trove of data. Let's find out about how they got a hold of this stuff. That sounded pretty intriguing. America First Policies reportedly raised $26 million last year for issue advocacy, but the issue pages on its website do not appear to have been updated for months. This is supposed to be an organization dedicated to informing the public about issues, right? Remember their tax status. And yet its issues pages contain stale news stories and reports borrowed from other outlets, said Fisher. Ooh, I like the angle of this investigation. But these pages of recycled reports are not where the real action is happening for America First Policies. Buried at the bottom of the group's homepage is a tiny, easily overlooked link labeled Data. And there's a screen capture of it here, and boy, it is tiny. I mean, it's in like copyright language sized font there. Behind this link, and it's like dark gray on black too, just so you know. And yeah, I mean, it's the sort of thing that ordinarily you wouldn't even accidentally click on. You got to know it's there. But once you do know it's there, I guess that's where they do. That's like the Dropbox for all of the information that they're, quote unquote, not sharing with the White House because they, quote unquote, don't coordinate, right? Behind this link lies an entirely separate section of the website divided into survey research, social media reports, and other. Well, let's see. America First Policies posts new reports under survey research nearly every week. Sometimes there are social media reports on the page, and other times the group posts strategy memos and large collections of public polling and other news articles. The latest addition to the survey research page was uploaded earlier this week, an 84-page summary of America First's policies February national polling, available for download in a document format called Keynote, which can be converted to a PDF, which is great if you're trying to elude detection this time, Paul Manafort. Asked why the data link was so small and difficult to see, while other tabs on the website were large and prominent, Montgomery responded, "It's there on the homepage." Okay, non-response. She also said that she plans to update the issue page, but that she's been too busy with other tasks. "We're not hiding anything," she said. "I just put the link at the bottom of the page so I can find it easily," said Walsh, who said he notifies other like-minded groups when new data is posted to the site. "We want to make sure it's publicly available," he said. Walsh refused to share additional polling that CNBC requested. "We want to make sure it's publicly available, except what you want. If things get taken down from the site, it's for server space," he added. The group removed several documents from the site after speaking to CNBC, for instance. "We just ran out of server space." In February, the group measured support for Trump's proposed military parade, whether voters agreed with Trump's defense of former White House Staff Secretary Robert Porter, who was accused of spousal abuse, and whether voters believe the claims contained in the Nunes memo, in addition to other topics. Half support the parade, by the way. Voters don't agree with Trump about Porter, and they don't believe the Nunes memo, in case you were wondering. So much of the information they're gathering is focused on the president himself and not necessarily his policies, said Jeffrey Skelly, associate editor of the nonpartisan campaign newsletter Sabato's Crystal Ball from the University of Virginia Center for Politics. Skelly questioned whether this could run afoul of campaign finance laws, which require nonprofit groups to disclose money they spend directly to benefit candidates. The answer is it could run afoul of the campaign finance laws. You just will never know it because they'll be hopelessly deadlocked in deciding whether or not to tell anyone that it violates campaign finance laws. Stephen Spaulding, a former special counsel at the Federal Election Commission and now director of strategy for the nonpartisan watchdog group Common Cause, agreed. There are ample grounds here to investigate whether America First Policies has been raising money that's subject to limits and disclosure requirements because it's being used for political purposes, he said. Asked specifically about the group's September poll that tested the best candidates in Arizona to knock out Flake in a GOP primary, Walsh said he was just scratching an itch when he commissioned it. Just wanted to know. The poll was conducted a few weeks after Trump openly called on Republicans to challenge Flake in a primary. At a Phoenix rally in August, he surprised aides by meeting backstage with two potential challengers and encouraged them to run. The America First Policies polling effort operates as a network of coordinated groups with two lesser-known firms, National Research Incorporated and Baselice Associates. Baselice. That's what it says. I wonder if that's like, is that a name like Basilici and Associates? Maybe Baselice or Basilici or somewhere in between. I have no idea, but that's really kind of gross sounding. Anyway, they work alongside a well-known Washington firm, The Polling Company, which was founded by former Trump campaign manager turned White House counselor and opioid czar, I add, Kellyanne Conway. When Conway sold her firm, because she sold off her outside business interests because conflict of interest maybe, or something? I don't know. Never heard of that before. Sold her firm in September of 2017. The polling company had already been working for America First Policies for more than 2 months, judging from the company's logo on polls that it conducted for the group in June and July. So I guess if she sold it in September of 2017, I mean, that's actually kind of late in the game. It may or may not have had anything to do with the conflict or whatever, but it certainly took her long enough to get around to it. And a soft landing, right? I sold it to someplace that I'm going to do some work for. Conway was granted a special ethics waiver last June so she could engage in communications and meetings with former clients of the polling company without violating Trump's 2-year ban on communications with former employers or clients. Ha. Conway has been called the Trump Whisperer for her ability to influence the often mercurial president. In a 2016 interview with MSNBC, she described herself as a discreet advisor to Trump, who was expected to use her data and strategy experience to help Trump craft his message. Now, about that break from the norm. For decades, White House pollsters for Republican presidents have been paid by the RNC, while the Democratic National Committee has paid for presidential polling during Democratic administrations. But the prolific output of polling data from America First Policies has coincided with a steep drop in the amount of money the RNC spends on presidential pollsters, as compared with the first 12 months of previous Republican administrations dating back to the Reagan White House. According to FEC reports, The total amount that the RNC spent on Trump's campaign pollsters in 2017 amounts to just 5% of what the committee spent on Ronald Reagan's White House polling in 1981, adjusted for inflation, and around 12% of what it spent for President George W. Bush's pollsters in 2001. This is partly due to a shift in the type of data system that is used by the RNC, away from traditional polling and toward a scoring system, according to an RNC official who spoke to CNBC on the condition of anonymity. Since 2013, we've spent $250 million to gather information through voter scoring, and we have a huge amount of information that informs those scores, the RNC official said. So we don't really pay for traditional polling anymore. We rely on this data instead. Still, it must cost something to gather, right? On the rare occasions that traditional White House polling is needed, the RNC official said the committee still relies on the president's preferred polling firms. This happened twice in 2017 and once again in January. Trump's top polling firms, meanwhile, do not come cheap. The three firms currently identified on some of America First's policies documents charged the Trump campaign a combined $2.1 million for just 2 months' worth of work polling during the final stages of Trump's 2016 presidential campaign, according to FEC filings. At these rates, the cost of the polling these firms have produced for America First policies since last summer could easily be in the seven figures. Yet, ever since Trump was inaugurated, these same filings reveal that the rebooted Trump 2020 campaign has not spent any money on polling, despite raising $17 million in the last year. This looks like a multi-million-dollar polling operation, said Spalding, the former FEC special counsel, who reviewed the documents that CNBC downloaded. And this isn't the kind of issue polling you'd expect to see from an outside nonprofit. This is more like a shadow campaign on behalf of the president. Much of the polling itself is deeply flawed, however, according to polling experts who reviewed the documents uncovered by CNBC. For example, America First Policy's pollsters frequently use leading questions, which make it clear that one answer is much better than other possible answers. The group also employs leading questions to test public opinion, skewing their own results and painting an incorrect picture of how voters feel about certain policy issues like immigration and infrastructure. If you want to test a position, you test a position. If you want to test a message, you test a message. There's time for both, but you don't deliberately F up the results of your position survey by dumping a message in front of it, said a veteran political pollster who spoke on the condition of anonymity. If you're trying to gauge a person's stance on asylum seekers, you don't taint your question with some BS about how violent MS-13 can be before you ask it. I mean, what good does that do? All it shows is that scary things can scare people. America First Policy's Montgomery acknowledged that some of the questions were leading, but said the ones she had helped write were not leading. Walsh said the leading questions were actually just message testing. But message testing typically occurs only after public opinion has already been measured without the use of leading messages. Many of America First's policies questions contain leading language the first time they appear on the survey. One recent example of leading language was in February's poll description of Trump's proposed military parade. Here, voters were asked whether they supported or opposed, quote, a military parade that honors our nation's veterans and the troops and families who sacrificed their lives for our country, as well as the strength of our military. In another question from February, as shown in the above screenshot, you can't see it, but you can if you click through to the story that I provide via links later on, thanks to Scott Anderson's fine work. You will see the above screenshot from one of the group's reports. Respondents were reminded that large companies had given out employee bonuses before they were asked if they agreed with House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi's comment that worker bonuses were crumbs compared with corporate windfalls. The results were surprising. A plurality of voters agreed with Pelosi, despite the lopsided question. This would suggest that for Republicans, using the crumbs comment as an attack line against the Democrats in 2018 campaigns, which Trump has suggested they do, might not be a good idea. Over the past 6 months, CNBC monitored America First Policy's website and found hundreds of pages of polling and research paid for by donors whose names are permitted to be kept secret. Much of this polling has since been removed from the site, but a portion of the removed documents are still available online. America First Policies is not the first nonprofit group created to advance a president's priorities, nor is it the first to conduct intensive polling. Two Obama-linked groups, Priorities USA and Organizing for Action, did the same thing. Priorities USA did not disclose its donors, but OFA did voluntarily, releasing quarterly donor lists. But by hiring the Trump campaign's pollsters to conduct such a large and secretive Trump-focused data operation and paying for it with dark money, America First Policies is going well beyond what previous outside nonprofit groups have done. While a political committee such as the RNC is designed and expected to collect information that helps to win elections, a nonprofit group such as America First Policies, permitted to operate tax-free and accept unlimited donations from donors whose names can be kept secret, is not. So, you have a situation where large donors are contributing to America First Policies with the understanding that their secret donations are going to be seen as valuable by the president because this group appears to work so closely with the White House, said Campaign Legal Center's Fisher. And because these donors are secret, the public and Congress will never know if the White House later took action to advance that donor's interests. That is quite a racket. In addition to a slew of senior advisors with ties to Trump, America First Policies has 3 board members, all of whom are also close to the Trump White House. Its chairman, Tommy Hicks Jr., is the son of a billionaire and a good friend of Donald Trump Jr. He also reportedly brokered White House introductions for companies seeking business with the Trump administration. Another board member, Dallas financial executive Roy Bailey, serves as managing director and founding partner of Giuliani Partners, LLC, along with former New York City mayor and longtime Trump ally Rudy Giuliani. The newest board member is Harold Hamm, a shale oil billionaire who was Trump's top pick for energy secretary, but reportedly turned down the job. He might be the smartest guy Trump knows. CNBC sent detailed questions to the White House about its relationship with America First Policies and asked what, if any, polling firms the Trump administration relies on to track public opinion and information for the president. The White House did not respond. All right, moving on. One last section here. A murky new era of campaigning. In recent years, the law that governs political spending and disclosure requirements have come under attack. Judicial rulings like 2010's Citizens United and the explosion of outside funding groups that followed it have had a cumulative effect, loosening the rules around money in politics, said Skelly. The result is that there are a lot of gray areas in the law today, and there are a lot of different groups all trying to fill in that gray. In this brave new world of often unlimited political money, some groups risk being left behind, and few more so than the 2 major party committees, the DNC and the RNC. The case of America First Policies only underscores how easy it is for one of the newer, less constricted political groups to take over what had once been a core party function, and to do it tax-free at that. Yet the shift away from the traditionally intertwined relationship between the RNC and the president's pollsters is also part of a bigger trend, Skelly said. We've seen the political parties weakened in recent years in terms of their control over their members and their policy agendas. America First Policies represents just another step in the waning influence of the party committees over how political activity in America is actually being conducted. Increasingly, top-down party bureaucracies like the RNC and DNC are giving way to loosely aligned networks of dark money groups, super PACs, political campaigns, and charities that may look distinct but often share staff, share vendors, and even share office space with one another. The nonprofit America First Policies has a sister political action committee, America First Action, also run by Walsh. As a super PAC, America First Action must report its donors to the FEC, but in return for that transparency, it's permitted to spend all of its money helping to win elections. And of course, if they're anything like Students for Trump, they just say, to hell with that, we're not going to report, but no indication that they've done that. In October of last year, America First Action launched a $100 million fundraising campaign with a series of events in Texas, including a donor meeting at the ranch of oil magnate T. Boone Pickens. Remember when he showed up at the Democratic National Convention of 2008? Courting the other side at that point. There, Walsh reportedly made a pitch to donors about how America First Action was the only pro-Trump super PAC that had the president's blessing. Among the attendees was Donald Trump Jr., I guess that'll indicate a blessing, who told the other guests that America First Action was the only outside group to which he would be donating. Hint, hint. Between America First Action and America First Policies, Walsh said more than $25 million had been raised so far that year. All these entities are indistinguishable from one another on the ground level, said Campaign Legal Center's Fisher. We have rules to guard against corruption and rules to help ensure transparency when money is being spent to influence elections, and it seems that there are grounds here to ask whether this group is just flouting the rules. My guess, of course, and probably yours as well, yes, they are. Okay, time now for perhaps one more story. We might be able to cram most of this in, and we'll give it our best shot anyway. And I will make the return to the gun issues that I had hinted at perhaps later on or on Monday. They can wait. This one you might need to hear for the weekend. Exclusive secret documents from Russia's election trolls leak. How do you like that? Their OPSEC is not all that good themselves. This from the Daily Beast. Reported by Ben Collins, Gideon Resnick, and Spencer Ackerman. Here you go. An online auction gone awry reveals substantial new details about how the Kremlin-backed troll farm ginned up IRL, in real life, protests. You remember that story. And targeted specific Americans to push their propaganda. A little more detail on the news that they were able to manipulate people into attending real-life events. The Kremlin-backed troll farm at the center of Russia's interference in the 2016 U.S. election has quietly suffered a catastrophic security breach. And it wasn't even the Dutch this time. The Daily Beast has confirmed this in a leak that spilled new details of its operations onto obscure corners of the internet. The Russian Information Exchange, as they close in quotes here, Joker.buzz, which auctions off stolen or confidential information. How do you like that? Advertised a leak for a large cache of the Internet Research Agency's internal documents. It includes names of Americans, activists in particular, whom the organization specifically targeted. American-based proxies used to access Reddit and the viral meme site 9gag. Oh boy, glad I don't know what that is. And login information for troll farm accounts. Even the advertisement for the document dump provides a trove of previously unknown information about the breadth of Russia's disinformation effort in the United States, including rallies pushed by IRA social media accounts that turned violent. That was their greatest hope, I think. While Special Counsel Robert Mueller's recent conspiracy indictment against the IRA showed a sophisticated organization aimed at targeting U.S. voters with disinformation, the seller appears not to have understood the implications of the auction. The listing was titled Savushkina 55, the physical address in St. Petersburg from which the troll farm used to operate. The date on the auction is listed as February 10th, 2017, 7 months before Facebook and Twitter identified and pulled down Internet Research Agency accounts from Twitter. Again, February 10th, 2017. It received no bids. The seller, Alex D.A., has not posted any other listings. He's probably dead, and was unable to be reached. In Russian, the listing promised, quote, working data from the department focused on the United States, unquote. Doi. While the date of the auction could not be independently confirmed, the authenticity of the leak can. The leaked documents list screen names connected to a number of American citizens who were used as unwitting proxies by the Russians. The Daily Beast was able to track down 4 of those citizens whose names have not been previously revealed. The leak contains precise dates in 2016 in which the IRA-created account Blacktivist reached out to those U.S. citizens, plus a short description of the conversations. The Daily Beast spoke to those citizens and confirmed they interacted with the Blacktivist account in the ways described by the IRA in the document. In one case, the American even provided screenshots of his interactions with the Russian troll trying to dupe him. In short, the leaked document contains details of the Russian disinformation campaign that have not previously been made public, details which the Daily Beast was able to confirm. The leak shows that even as the Russian trolls were able to influence and manipulate American political discourse online, they were less equipped to keep their own secrets. While the Daily Beast does not possess anything close to a comprehensive trove of the IRA's internal operations, it is now likely that substantial amounts of the troll farm's files are waiting to be discovered online. But what the Daily Beast has seen provides a new level of texture and detail to the IRA's USA efforts, online and off. While the troll farm's use of YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook is now well known, the leak shows that the Internet Research Agency also operated on Reddit and had a substantial footprint on Tumblr. They documented and tracked their personalized interactions with specific unsuspecting Americans, some of whom are named in the leaks. Those outreach efforts display conceptual sophistication. The leaks show that IRA imposter accounts targeted activists for specific causes the Russians wanted promoted. On the target list, the daughter of one of Martin Luther King's lieutenants. But the leaks also provide a glimpse into the troll farm's weaknesses. Some of the Americans the group contacted described receiving impersonal entreaties from unfamiliar accounts, asking for trivial aid and then declining to follow up. The Internet Research Agency might have known how to leverage social media, but they knew far less about how users authentically interact with each other on it, which itself attracted suspicion among the very people the Russians were contacting. I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't know who they were and why they were remaining anonymous, and I didn't really see the need for it, said Craig Carson, a Rochester, New York attorney and civil rights activist who was contacted by the farm-created account Blacktivist. Chanel LaRae Logan, who lives in Sacramento, California, and said she is active in Black Lives Matter campaigns, told the Daily Beast that these kind of trolling overtures are actually just counterproductive to our movement. Well, that was the point, I think. The leaks also reveal the IRA's previously unreported connection to two additional 2016 rallies, one outside Atlanta and another in western New York. The Daily Beast can now confirm one of them turned violent. On February 16th, Mueller indicted 13 people for their involvement in the Russian troll farm. The allegations have yet to be proven in court and may never be, given the unlikelihood of Russia arresting and extraditing them for trial. But combined with the leaked IRA documents, they provide a glimpse into the organization's tradecraft. Mueller describes an extensive operation, both online and off, beginning in 2014 to, quote, sow discord in the U.S. political system. What the Internet Research Agency called its Translator Project involved over 80 employees and a monthly budget that stretched to over $1.25 million. As U.S. elections approached, its internal understanding of its goal was to engender American distrust towards the candidates and the political system in general. By February of 2016, with the U.S. presidential election looming, it emphasized attacking Hillary Clinton, both from the right and the left simultaneously. Its means included physical reconnaissance. 2 IRA employees went on a road trip to visit 9 American states stretching from New York to California to gather intelligence in June of 2014. 5 months later, a colleague spent another 4 days in Atlanta. One of the employees who visited America was Anna Vladislavovna Bogacheva. How's that? Then the head of the Troll Farm's Department of Analytics. The auction of the leaked IRA data offers a glimpse into that department's work, which appears focused on understanding America and teasing out the most contentious issues. One department folder is titled U.S. Migration Policy, which would prove a cornerstone of the IRA's most divisive trolling. Other folders cover the ruling political oligarch, false promises of America, and airstrike costs, likely a reference to Trump's bombing of a Syrian military airfield, which Putin condemned and the IRA attacked as a waste of taxpayer money. One folder simply reads, Obama. Well, not much more time left to actually finish the article, and there's plenty more to it, and I encourage you to read it offline, perhaps this weekend. One of the rallies that they mentioned having manipulated in real life was a clash over Confederate monuments at Stone Mountain, Georgia, which they, in sort of a telltale sign, identify as Rock Stone Mountain, and they make other very revealing and obvious slip-ups that make it clear that it's a Russian that you're dealing with and not an American, including misuse of quotation marks, etc., etc. But yeah, Rock Stone Mountain, and the fact that the rally would be beginning at 14 p.m., pretty much gives it all away. But still, lots to read in this one and lots of new detail being discovered by the folks there at Daily Beast. I encourage you to pick that up, along with all the other articles that we brought to your attention. Hopefully we've given you a good start for the weekend. I'm glad I was able to record something for you and not leave you in the lurch. Of course, I can't tell you, unfortunately, what's coming up next on Justice Putnam's program, the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, but I have this guest for you. I would bet a considerable amount of money, if I had that considerable amount of money, that all of the exciting developments that you will have heard of from Twitter and the other news sources this Friday morning, which I was not able to pick up on because I recorded this on Thursday evening, will be featured on Justice's program, and you'll get the update you need with all the latest news. That way, we'll be back on Monday to wrap up the craziness of the weekend, which will make you forget all about those things that happened on Friday that I wasn't able to tell you about on Thursday.
From Daily Kos Radio on netrootsradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Thanks very much for bearing with us on this travel day Friday. Hope I didn't leave anything out, and that you have a good weekend and you can keep your brain intact with all the craziness that's going to be happening around you. Hopefully it'll still be a peaceful atmosphere as we get back together on Monday to reveal the weekend's craziness.